PlayStation have just announced that as of 2028, they are going exclusively digital. So what does that mean for us gamers? Let's talk about it. Friends, foes and gamers alike. My name is Mon. Welcome to my little corner of the internet where I like to talk about all things gaming. So 2 days ago, PlayStation announced that they were going exclusively digital with their games as of 2028. And it has been met with some intense backlash. Understandably, gamers are not happy, and even Domino's Pizza put out a statement saying that they are going exclusively digital in solidarity. So, of course, this announcement has been met with such a mixed reception, and I have a cat here. He wanted to join in. Say hi. And there's another cat. Personally speaking, I am exclusively digital. I can't remember the last time I bought a physical game. The last time I bought a physical game must be long before the pandemic. So about 6 years ago. Personally, for me, this announcement is not really a shake-up to my gaming life because I've been exclusively digital for so long. I understand, though, why others are upset. But me personally, I swapped to digital a long time ago because when I moved from Ireland to the US, I, of course, in a gamer's nature, I bought a PlayStation and none of my physical media would work on it because it was all geo-locked. I believe the physical media are locked between the US, Europe and Asia, I believe. But I know definitely Europe and the US. And all my physical games were pretty much useless when I moved to America. So that is when I made the decision to start doing digital. And honestly, from moving country to country, it was very beneficial for me. And that's why I never went back to physical. I will say that is still my biggest complaint to this day, that physical copies are geo-locked, Obviously, moving to the US, I didn't bring my PlayStation with me because imagine bringing that through customs. But had the geo-lock not been a thing, I probably would have brought a suitcase full of my physical games over with me. But that was just not doable. So what I ended up having to do was rebuying any games that I knew I would play and rebuying games that were cheap at the time. So I personally, this announcement doesn't personally affect me, but I did go looking to see what the major disadvantages would be of going exclusively digital, and it was pretty eye-opening. There is benefits of being exclusively digital, but there's also some scary disadvantages of swapping to digital entirely. And I think it's important to note that Sony is the first to do it, but that doesn't mean that others aren't considering it. Xbox are considering it. I believe they're looking at a way of converting disc media to digital. So if you have a disc, you're going to be able to get a code and then redeem a digital copy through that disc. I think Microsoft are doing something like that. So this move is definitely not ending with PlayStation. We just talk about how classy Nova is in the background. Nova, this is going on the internet. Have some class, girl. Without further ado, let's have a look at some of the notes I gathered about what will happen if we entered a world where it was exclusively digital media. So nowadays, having physical media is important because it represents true ownership. You bought the copy, you own the copy, and it's yours. Physical media is also protected by the first sale doctrine, which basically means that the buyer has the right to resell it, lend it to someone else, or even give it away. Which obviously that's where resale and trade value comes in, and that's where a lot of secondhand stores play a role in today's market. And then obviously with physical media, you can play it wherever and whenever you want. And also as well, now I think it's kind of changed a bit in the last few years, but when you had the physical copy of the game, you were not reliant on an internet connection. If you had an unstable internet connection back in the day, physical media was better for you because it was just installed off a disc. If you were doing it all online, then you would have had a problem. So the biggest and scariest thing about going exclusively digital, and this is a term that I've seen pop up a good few times when I was researching, is we are now exposed to what could be the digital graveyard. And basically what that means is if anything happens to your account, no matter what it is, you are going to lose every single game you have ever purchased over X amount of years. It doesn't matter how long. You will lose everything if you lose your accounts. And obviously, there's a lot of circumstances in which that can happen. You know, you can be banned. Obviously, you can be wrongly banned, which happens a bit. Your account could be hacked. And, you know, even with where we're going with AI, like, you know, when you appeal something on certain websites, you're always met with an AI who's going to review it. And, you know, appealing an account ban is not as easy nowadays because of AI. You know, AI is processing those appeals and, you know, you're not getting a human to review it and understand your point of view. And that's definitely a part of digital games that I never really thought of, but now that I'm thinking of it, it scares me a lot. And it actually has happened to me before. It happened to me with Epic Games. I had a game library. Now, thankfully, it wasn't big. I had about like 3 or 4 games in it. And what happened was I was trying to merge my Fortnite into one account because I had 2 Fortnite accounts. I had one on my PlayStation, one on my Switch, and I wanted them obviously both together. It was really messed up. I don't know. Epic was so complicated with the email and account linking. But anyway, I was trying to merge them into one account so I can sync, obviously, my progress between my Switch and my PlayStation. But whatever way I did it, whatever way I was guided to do it, I surrendered the license to all the games in my Epic library. And despite showing the receipts for it, like, I still wasn't eligible to get them back, you know? So I had a taste of that, and it's not good. Thankfully, it was only 3 games. It wasn't a huge loss, but it did suck. It sucked a lot. So the idea of that happening with my Steam account, where literally my whole gaming library is, that gives me, that makes me feel ill. Another scenario that was brought up, now, I don't know what the likelihood of this happening is, but it is entirely possible with a digital era, is that games can be taken away if they're deemed not profitable or not doing well. So, for example, a game could go up on PlayStation and let's just say it does really well for the first few years and then it stops doing well. They can decide to pull the plug. They can decide to take it off the shelf and basically, like, erase it from existence. And what I think sucks about that is that decision will be in the hands of the publisher, not necessarily the developer. So imagine working for ages on the game, it's up on the PlayStation Store for a few years, and then it's being taken down by the publisher, and no one can go back and play it in a few years. So it's endangering nostalgia, you know, it's endangering gaming nostalgia. Because imagine someone said to me, did you ever play this one on the PS3? And I still have a PS3, so I could always, you know, source it and play it on the PS3 if a disc is available. But, you know, going forward then, someone could say, oh, remember this game? And you could say no, and then, but you obviously have no option to go back and see it because it's not there anymore. So, you know, so it's basically going to erase the nostalgia of, like, going back and playing retro games, you know? Like, the games that we see in today's market, years down the line when they're considered retro, a lot of people might not even get to play them because, you know, if they're not physical and they're not online anymore, then what do we do? And linking in with that, another scenario I saw was that they could potentially, and by they I mean publishers, they can shut down one game to move us to the next game. So let's say, one of the examples I seen in the articles I was reading was Overwatch. So let's say, for example, Overwatch 1, we had that, and when Overwatch 2 comes out, they could take the first Overwatch off the market completely and force us all to play number 2. Again, I don't know the likelihood of that happening, but it can happen. Under the end license agreement, they can do that if they wanted to. And another big downside is the server reliance. Now, we've seen this happen a few times. It happened at Christmas, I believe it was. You know, if the Steam servers go down, PlayStation servers go down, if any hosting servers go down, that game goes down too. So we basically have to put our gaming into the hands of a server. And if that goes down, then we have no game. When before, the only thing we had to worry about was the electricity going out. And, you know, we've seen that happen over the years. We've seen, like, you know, server hacks. We've seen store pages go down for days on end. I remember when the PlayStation hack happened, I think it was 2013, 2014, and PlayStation was down for like 2 weeks. Like, you know, it was rough. But back then, like, obviously physical media was still a thing, so we didn't feel the loss that it would have been nowadays. And then I believe it was Christmas last year. I think Steam went down for a couple of days because I remember a lot of games were inaccessible. And a lot of people were saying, like, oh, I got a voucher, but I can't use it on Christmas Day. So, you know, the servers need to have tight, like, security and tight backups, you know, because if they go down, as I said, the games go too. And one thing I came across, and it makes so much sense, is that the digital era will eventually push us to subscription-based services, and that will be soon mandatory. So for example, let's say when PlayStation go exclusively digital, they can sell digital copies for crazy amounts. So like 70, 80, 90, 100 euro. But in the background, they could be like, oh, but you can play that title and many others for just 15 euro a month. And obviously 15 euro a month for a whole bunch of games, it's going to sound more appealing than 90 just for one game. So what could happen is they might keep hiking the prices, and then eventually when the majority have moved over, they'll start making probably games exclusive to subscription services. And I don't know how I feel about that. I can totally see that happening. That was the one thing I was kind of like, yeah, I can see that. But I don't really know how I feel about that. Like, I don't have Game Pass. I did have the PlayStation Pass for a while, and I unsubscribed because it got to a point, like, I didn't feel I was playing enough games to justify paying a monthly price for it. So I'm really on a seesaw with subscription gaming services, because I don't know, like, I think when you're paying monthly, I feel more pressure to play games, whereas when I just buy the game alone, like, I feel more comfortable to play it in my own time. I don't know if that makes sense, but I can definitely see that mandatory subscription thing becoming real. I can see that in the next probably few years. And all that being said, this is all extremely worrying for retail stores, second-hand stores, trade-in stores. Like, I mean, GameStop is mostly gone, but, any shop you see that has games in it, they're going to be wiped out as a result of this. And obviously, yeah, they can take in and sell like old copies that are still out there, but there's only so many of them, and there's no new copies coming out. Like, it's going to stop somewhere. So essentially what we are losing alongside physical copies is also like the true legal ownership. And a study I found online says that about 87% of classic games, so before 2010, are not available to play because the digital market don't have them. Like, new physical copies are not being released and the digital stores are not selling them. So it's going to become a point where, games just vanish into the background, like... There's a few PlayStation 3 titles that I would love to play nowadays, but they're not on the store, and I haven't got the physical copies of them. So, and that's scary as well, And I think it's a shame, like, when thinking of the developers, because imagine the work they put in only for their game to vanish into the background. And I'm going to use Life is Strange, for example, because I am 99% sure you cannot get the original one anymore. I think if you were to buy Life is Strange nowadays, it would be the remaster that was from Deck 9. I don't think you're able to buy Dontnod's version anymore. I think that version's gone. And that's a good example of what we're facing in the future. So I have the original Life is Strange because I obviously bought it on PC when it came out. But if I wanted to play Dontnod's version nowadays, I actually don't know how I'd get it. I don't think it's available on Steam. I'm actually going to check real quick on here for the name of science. Okay, I have an update. The original Life is Strange by Dontnod is on Steam, but it's not available as the complete game. It's literally in each episode. Like, each episode is a standalone on Steam. And if I went into episode 5, for example, it says that I need episode 1 in order to play that. Now, I have them all in my library already. I don't know how it looks for people who don't have the game, but if I wanted to buy like the complete Life is Strange game, I'd have to get the remaster, which is from Deck 9. And the one thing that totally sucks about this is we could end up in a scenario where I'm just going to use The Last of Us because they've had so many remasters. Let's say you buy a digital copy of The Last of Us 1. You buy it, you played it, great. And then they make a remaster again. They could pull the copy you own off of your library and the store and say, oh, sorry, you have to get the remaster now because it's the newest one. And then you have to buy the same game again and just because they got a remaster, the other one was pulled. That's the kind of future we're facing with games. Now, we could be protected by that when it comes to subscriptions. Again, I'm not too fond on that idea, but I don't know. It's complicated as heck. And again, my biggest concern with this exclusive digital era is, you know, what happens to your games if you lose your account, because you can get banned if you do something wrong, but you can also get banned for being falsely accused, for like being like misunderstood. You know, there's so many reasons you can have your account banned, and you know, and it's not because of a malicious reason. You know, you can have your account falsely banned, you can have your account hacked, then deleted, and all. I think there needs to be definitely an overhaul of what to do in that situation, because, like, I don't know, I just hate the idea that, like, you know, if you're falsely banned or or you lose access to your account for whatever reason, that your game's gone, you know? So I do think like something needs to be done in that regard. You know, we do have to have an extra layer of protection in the sense like, okay, if I lose access to my account, if I'm hacked, what happens to my games? You know, I think we definitely need that extra layer of security. But unfortunately, lads, PlayStation may be the first, but they definitely will not be the last. Xbox are looking at the transition. They are looking at potentially having no disk drive in their next console. They have something in the works called Project Helix, and it's their next console, and reportedly it's being designed not to take discs. And Microsoft are looking at ways where you can convert your disc media into digital media. That's already been done with PC. Like, I remember doing that with The Sims. I had all The Sims collected. I had every single pack of The Sims. And with The Sims 3, I had them all on disc. And then when I got my PC didn't have a disc drive. So what I ended up having to do was, and Oregon at the time was the one doing it, I was able to redeem all my codes and get the discs transferred to digital. So I can play The Sims 3 online now digitally, but I had to convert my codes to digital copies. Nintendo are apparently doing some sort of hybrid approach, whereas they are still using physical media, but they are experimenting with digital. So they are still selling their little cartridges with the games in them, but they are looking at the possibility of selling them with a code inside. So instead of discs, we're essentially going to get key cards. And even though this change is coming in 2028, we've already seen it in so many ways, you know, because Grand Theft Auto 6, which is a hugely anticipated game, that's already confirmed, I believe, to have a digital-only base, so there'll be no discs, and I think if they are selling copies, it's going to be just a code. And we've already seen games like Hellblade 2 and Alan Wake 2, they've gone completely digital. They don't have physical copies. And I'm a bit embarrassed to admit this, but there are a lot of games on the market at the moment that I did not realise had physical copies. I've never seen a physical copy of the first Hellblade. And I don't think I've ever seen physical copies of Death Stranding either, but I know they exist. I just haven't seen them myself. And you know, digital copies do have a lot of benefits, but I think when you're talking about going exclusive, it does get a little scary. And I do think we need, as gamers, a little extra protection to know that the games we do have are safe, you know, and it sucks that a publisher can take back a game wherever they want. But the way I see it is, you know, they could have done that all along. This is the way the market currently is, but we have physical games as a backup, you know. So I don't know if they're actually going to start doing that more in the future, but it's scary to know that they can do that. But I definitely think in terms of, you know, account protection, we do need a little extra layer of security. And even though it's really uncomfortable knowing they can take the games at any time, I do think like we probably just need to wait it out and just deal with them as they happen, you know. I don't know where the future is going with games, and I'm a little scared. I'm a little worried, but I guess we just have to wait and find out how it goes. So what do you think? Are you happy that PlayStation are going exclusively digital? Is this something that's going to impact you? What's your biggest concern and what's your overall opinion on this matter? Let me know in the comments because I love reading them, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye!